Hello and welcome. Today we are going to be discussing the process for creating a contract record in the E-Rate Productivity Center portal for your library. Following the bidding process that is part of the Form 470, you will potentially have created a contract as a result of that Form 470. And in order for that contract to be recognized in the E-Rate portal, you will need to create a contract record that reflects the information on that contract. So to begin with, we will want to go to the E-Rate Productivity Center. In order to log in to the E-Rate Productivity Center, you will need to go to www.usac.org and click on Sign In. Click on Continue, and then enter your username, which should be your email address, and your password. If you need to reset your password, please click on Forgot Password, and then enter your username, and then click on Reset via email, and it will send you a link to reset your password with. If it has been more than 60 days since you last logged in, you may be prompted to set a new password. If you're having difficulties with logging in, or you get into a quote-unquote loop, you may want to try a different web browser. Google Chrome is really well optimized for the E-Rate portal, so you may want to try a different web browser, Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge, if the one that you're using is, you're encountering issues with the one that you're using. For now, we're going to be using a training version of the portal to show you the steps for creating a contract record. And we'll sign in to this example library. In order to create a contract record, you are going to need to go to the link for your library's name, and that can be found just below the logo for the Universal Service Administrative Company. On this page, you have a summary of the library's information, and under contracts, this link right here, this tab, we'll want to click there, and this is going to show you a list of all contract records that have been created for the library. In order to create a new contract record, click on Manage Contracts. If you were in the process of drafting a contract and you did not fully submit it, then you can find that contract draft under My Contract Drafts. For now, we don't have a draft here, but let's click on Add a New Contract. And enter a nickname to easily identify this contract. You might want to use the name of the internet service provider. So we will just type in that. For you, it may be one of the major internet service providers in the US, or maybe a local service provider. You can use their name there. And then it is useful to enter at least the starting year of the internet contract. In this case, it would be funding year 2023. If it's a multi-year contract, then it may be useful to add the year in which that contract will end. So if this was a 36-month contract, for example, it would end in 2026. Contract number. This is not a required field, but if you have a number on the contract formed with the internet service provider, you may enter that here as an identifying piece of information. Once you have that required nickname filled, please click on Save and Continue. By the way, if you click on Save and Close, it will save the draft version of the contract under that My Contract Drafts section that we reviewed a moment ago. Next, we have contract information. We have a question: would you like to upload a copy of your contract? You may do so here. However, it is often best to select No, and then in the event that the contract is needed by those who are reviewing the Form 471 that references the contract, at that time it may make more sense to provide them with the contract then. We suggest selecting No for now. Less is often more as far as the contract records go. So let's go ahead and click on Save and Continue. Contract information. Is this contract based on a state master contract? Typically, the answer to this is going to be no. If you went through a Form 470 bidding period and a typical procurement for our LCT libraries is not going to develop a contract based on a state master contract. If this does apply to you, then you can click on Yes. Is this contract based on a multiple award schedule? For the vast majority of cases, that is going to be no. Can other applicants piggyback off of this contract? Again, this is going to be a no for LCT libraries. Was this contract originally created by another applicant and you then piggybacked off their contract? We are typically asking that most LCT libraries are filing for their own individual contract, so this is going to be a no. Was an establishing FCC Form 470 posted for the product and or services you are requesting? The answer to this is going to be yes, and you are going to want to have available the Form 470 number that you either filed this year for funding year 2023, and that is going to be something that is searchable below. You can either search by the Form 470 number, or you can search by the BEN. The BEN, the Build Entity Number, that is the number that identifies the library in the EPC portal, and that will automatically populate here. So if you don't change anything here, you can click on Search, and it will bring up the Form 470s that have been filed. You are going to want to find the Form 470 that is most recently filed. If you have a new contract, the one that you used to create the contract with for your library for funding year 2023. If you're creating a new contract, that is probably going to be a funding year 2023 Form 470. For this example, we're just going to select one of these, but keep in mind, the contract that you are selecting is going to be for funding year 2023, under a 2023 Form 470, that is. how many bids were received? Consider the bids that you evaluated and the bids that you received emails regarding during the bidding process for the Form 470. This will also include in the event that you are considering a current month-to-month service as a proposal, or if you're considering a pre-existing contract as a proposal, those can be added in the number of bids as well. For example, if you received 3 bids, then you can enter that there. But it's important to keep track of the proposals that you received during the Form 470 bidding period, and this is part of the reason why. Once we have that information filled, please click on Save and Continue. Here we have the service provider information related to the contract. Your service provider should have a service provider identification number that is associated with it, SPIN, and that is going to be something that is in the E-Rate Productivity Center as well. If you have an account number, you can enter that here. This is an optional field, so you don't need to fill this out unless you prefer to. If you, on your bids from your selected service provider, if they included their SPIN number, SPIN, then you can enter that here and search by that. That's the preferred method of searching for it. In a number of cases, a service provider name, an individual service provider might have multiple SPINs for different areas of the country. So by searching for the specific SPIN, you are going to be able to correctly identify the correct service provider in the portal here. If you absolutely cannot find the SPIN associated with the service provider, you may be able to search for the name here. Because this is a sample portal, we are just going to search for, and you see here we have sample names, so we'll just select USAC Service Provider Organization 1 as the example. For your library, again, searching by SPIN is going to be best because it will identify that specific service provider for your area of the country, your area of the state of Texas. Once you have that selected, you can click on Save and Continue. Here we have information on the contract dates. First of all, is this a multi-year contract? In the example that we're using here, yes it is. We are using the sample as a 36-month contract. However, if you have a 12-month contract, you can select No here. For this example, we are selecting Yes. And what is the date you awarded your contract? So following the bidding period of the Form 470 and following the evaluation of the proposals that you received during that bidding period, you may have sent a letter of award to the winning service provider. And on that letter, you should have included a date. That would be the appropriate date to include here as the date you awarded your contract. if you if instead of the letter of award you signed a formal contract instead, then you can include the date that that was signed here instead. So let's assume that today I sent out a letter of award for the services for the library. So assuming that today is January 11th, 2023, and that's the date on that letter of award, we can enter that here. We do need to use a date, day, month, year format. And you can also click on here to select the specific day, year, month, day, and year. Once that is filled out, click on Save and Continue. Next, we have contract dates. Some contracts will include options for voluntary extensions on them. Typically, these contract extensions are for 12-month periods that follow the normal length of the contract, and they are voluntary. This is something that you will need to check the terms of your contract for. If there is no language including information about voluntary extensions in the contract, then you can select no. If there is, you will select yes. And if there is an answer yes, then it brings up these additional fields that you'll need to provide answers for. First off, what is the contract expiration date if all extensions are exercised? So for this example that we used here, we're imagining that this is a 36-month contract that is starting on July 1st of 2023 and would normally extend to June 30th of 2026. If we were adding 2 extensions left on the contract, then we would be extending that. Then if all extensions were exercised, the contract expiration date would then be 2028 because you're adding 2 12-month periods to that. What is the total remaining length of the contract if you exercised all extensions in months? So normally it would be 36 months for this imaginary 36-month contract. But if you're providing 2 extensions on that, that is going to extend it by 12 months and then 12 months again. And you can include 60 months there. Again, this is specific to your contract with your service provider. If you have any questions about the information in your contract, you can reach out to your service provider for additional information. Or if you have any questions, please reach out to U8 Central and the Libraries Connecting Texas project program at lct@e-ratecentral.com. If this all looks good, go ahead and click on Save and Continue. Pricing confidentiality. Is there a statute, rule, or other restriction which prohibits publication of the specific pricing information for this contract? Typically, this is going to be no. You can click on Save and Continue. Here we have a review of all the information that we have already entered on the contract record. Scrolling down, you can see all the information you already entered, the piggybacking information, the state master contract information, the contract number, if you included that, our nickname. Is it based on a multiple award schedule? No. Your number of bids, your Form 470 number, your service provider and their SPIN number, account number, if you entered that, award date, multi-year contracts, yes or no. Does it include voluntary extensions, yes or no, and the information on extension details. Again, if you don't have voluntary extensions on your contract, then this information is going to be a no, and the extension details will generally point to a contract end date of the normal end date of the contract. Pricing confidentiality, that is no, there's no rule. Supporting documents, if you uploaded a copy of your contract, then that would show up here. Again, we recommend that you don't upload a copy of the contract. If a copy of your contract is needed as part of the review process later on during the Form 471 PIA inquiry process, then it will be requested, and you'll be able to provide it at that time. So after reviewing this information, if everything looks correct, please click on Complete. If you need to, at any point, save and close the draft, you can click there. And again, if you need to open the draft contract later, it shows up right here. Under My Contract Drafts, you'll want to click on the box in order to open it again, and click on Edit. And unfortunately, it begins you at the beginning of the contract record, but if you click on Save and Continue, you can reselect the answers that need to be reselected. In a number of cases, the information will remain on that draft, however, but let's just save and continue to the end, and we're back to the review pane. And just to show you what it looks like when you complete the contract record, click on Complete. And there we go. It now shows up under your submitted contracts with the information that you entered on that contract draft. Again, this is going to be a necessary step that you will need to take prior to filing the Form 471, unless you are specifically using month-to-month services. You should create a contract record. If you're under a multi-year contract already, then the contract section is something that you'll be able to reference for future funding years during the length of that contract, instead of having to create a new contract each year. If you have any questions, please reach out to E-Rate Central and our Libraries Connecting Texas team. We can be reached at LCT at e-ratecentral.com. Thank you again for joining us today.